know you don't love looking at the numbers in front of a team's name sometimes when it is number one and you're going to their building. How does that get guys on edge a little bit more? Does that get them a little bit more fired up to take on a challenge like this?
Well, I think a little bit, if you back that up just a little bit, we've got a pretty good understanding what Michigan State brings, and this isn't their first time at being number one in the country. They're good. So there's a respect factor there, but also, I think our group believes in themselves and understands that, if you're going to beat a team like that, you're going to have to go win a hockey game. They're not going to give it to you. They're good between the posts. They're as tight defensively. They take away the middle of the rink. Special teams are solid. They're a little heavier than they've been previously, but they've got that with experience and youth. So they're going to have 12 forwards or plus and 6 defensemen that are focusing on getting their job done. We've got to worry about us. Yeah, and understanding that when you go on the road in the Big Ten, it's hard to win hockey games. But if you want to be where you want to be at the end of the year, you need to do it and do it well.
Been in some really tight games with them the last couple of years. Do you feel like you're in a better spot now, having experienced some things in close games this season, to feel like you can get over the goal line there, I guess, so to speak, of winning those close games?
Well, I think even this last weekend, there were peaks and valleys, but it was a hard weekend. That's pretty much what it is in the Big Ten. You're going to have to, you don't get to put in less than 60 minutes and win a hockey game in our conference. And so, there's so many things that go into it on getting off on the right foot. They've been playing with the lead a ton this year. And we're a better team when we're playing with the lead, as any team is. So for us, it's about focusing on what we need to do here before we get into a break, and try and squeeze everything we can, just like we did. We had a pretty good homestand for the first half. It's putting us in a decent position, but at the end of the day, it doesn't buy you a cup of coffee. We've got to go on the road and now play in a building where they've had an awful lot of success in. So they're going to be comfortable in their own beds doing what they do. But our guys are excited about the opportunity of playing a really good hockey team.
Seems that with some of the goals this weekend by guys like Bruno Ejon, collectively, the newcomers have all really come into their own the last couple of weeks in particular, too. Just what as a group have they all done so well to get to this point?
One, I think they were prepared coming in here by the people that had an opportunity to coach them a year ago. So that was a good start from day one when they got on campus. And then I'll say this, when you're going to a place like Michigan State, you want to lean on the guys that have been there before and understand what it is to go on the road in the Big Ten, and that's the guys that have come back. And so between those two things, we need our leadership group and the guys that have been in that building before to draw on those experiences. And same type of leadership that we had when that new group got here this summer for the 8 weeks, is they put them under their wing and said, hey, you know what, just follow us. And that group's done that, and we're going to need them to do that this weekend. I do like the growth that we've seen from our young guys. They're, I said this probably at game 8 or 10, they're no longer freshmen, right? They've been in some battles, they've been in some wars that from a hockey standpoint, that now they're starting to consistently understand what goes into being consistent, and being an everydayer. And I think that comes from our leadership group. And Joey Plotachuk's going to be back in the lineup unless something goofy happens. I mean, he's back skating, no restrictions. So it'll be great to have his energy, his leadership come back into our lineup and allow those guys to follow.
Like, you guys said all the right things last year, and there's no reason to doubt any of that, but like, how much how much more fun is it to come to work? How much, what's the attitude like when you're getting the results you think you deserve?
You know what? When you're preaching what we preach as a staff on the idea of being everydayers, and there's only certain things you can control. And that's really today. And for us as a staff, is it more enjoyable? You know what's more enjoyable is seeing some of those guys have a benefit from doing the work that they've done. Seeing this leadership group learn from some of the things that they wanted to make a part of themselves because of what they saw with Owen Lindmark, and then putting their own spin on it and saying, okay, we're going to do this a little bit different because this is what works for us. So from that standpoint, you enjoy seeing your players put the work in and be rewarded for the work. And so, you know, our guys are pretty good about staying in the present. We try to do the same thing as a staff because that's what we get to control. And we're in it together, and that group's done a really good job, and hopefully we can continue to help them get in a direction that today was really good, right? So today was fun. when we're going in the wrong direction and we're not quite all on the same page as a coach and as a staff, you look back and you point a thumb first. It's not at the guys. So this group's been pretty resilient. They've been okay being held accountable. They're holding each other accountable. And hence I think we're seeing some progress on a weekly basis. And we're going to need that. We've got a couple of days left here when we get into the battle against a really good team.
Looking back at last weekend, a couple of the goals against were not necessarily right off of a rush, but off of that next 5 seconds, you know, where it maybe breaks down a little bit. Is there something there you can take out of that as a teaching tool to say, here's how we handle this better? Or has that been something you've noticed over the course of the season, or is that just kind of something that popped up?
I think we've slowly been getting away from some of our detail. And I always try to go, statistics don't tell you everything, but they are a pretty good barometer on where you're at. And we discussed it today. I think there was a focus on us because we did not know where we going to be able to have secondary scoring? Where are guys returning? Were they going to be able to turn around a season that maybe they didn't like what they had the year before? And as we've gone through that and become a better team offensively, I do think our detail away from the puck, our detail at, you know, the opportunities we're giving up, the second and thirds, and even the volume. You know, our volume of playing defense has grown over the last couple of weeks. And so, yeah, I mean, we look at everything after every weekend, but yes, we've outnumbered rushes. I thought Ohio State did a really good job, and Michigan State will do the exact same thing at getting their D involved in rushes. And multiple times last weekend, you saw that second wave get into our zone, cross the blue line before our toes crossed the blue line. And it's something that the guys have, you know, we identified as a staff. We've talked about it, and, you know, we'll be working on that this week.
When Morrissey's obviously been involved offensively on a lot of goals, assisting on a lot, but when he's finding the back of the net himself, as he has gotten himself back into these last handful of games, just what extra does that add to the offensive attack, and how do you want him balancing that role between being a playmaker and a scorer?
Well, and I'll answer that a little bit with Todd's last question. It's great to see him. He's starting to become consistently, you can see he's working on becoming more of a shot-first mentality guy. And as I mentioned in here to Todd after the game, you know, he didn't dust that one off. He got it, got his head up and found a spot and shot it before the goaltender was able to get set. But I'll also tell you, he looks at his whole game. And the offensive side, that piece of it is coming. But one thing that I think he's really aware of is his play away from the puck. When he's doing what he needs to do defensively, he gets a lot more puck touches from us coming out of the zone by defending real well and staying on the right side of the puck. And so, it was great to see him finish that goal. We need him to be one of our most consistent guys. But I think the first thing that Gavin would say is, he wants to do the same thing as our group. We need to get better away from the puck so that we have the puck more. We're not defending as often as we are in our zone for extended periods of time. The one thing about Gavin is he holds himself to an incredibly high standard. He goes back and he pores over his video, and he's a pretty good self-evaluator. So those are some of the things that we've talked about, but I do want to say when you have a guy like him, you want him to be and feel like he's a difference maker, and he was in the overtime goal.
Anything new on Osborne and how that might impact him? I know he's got a possibility to be up in St. Paul after Christmas, but I don't know how this impacts that.
Yeah, you know what? It's staying with him for a bit. It's been a struggle for him. He's trying to work on his dailies as far as not shooting pucks and getting in the weight room, but just trying to get healthy. Being able, he's blessed with two incredible parents, and our medical staff are just trying to make sure that we're waiting for this thing to turn and go in a good direction so that he can get back on the ice, but he won't be available this weekend. And so that's been, something that, again, it's some adversity, and he's focusing on right now making sure that he's doing everything he can to take care of his academics and not getting behind in that. And hopefully sometime real soon here, he'll be getting back on the rink, but it won't be here in the next 48, 72 hours. Joe's in a really good spot, as I mentioned earlier. He's finally gotten through a little bit of that crud, and there's a lot of it going around. And I'm hoping that we can stay away from it here for at least the next 4 or 5 days.